First, that about face from Donald Trump on Ukraine. The U.S. president sat down with the Ukrainian leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. After that meeting, Trump made a social media post with a much more optimistic tone on Ukraine, even saying Kyiv could take back the upper hand. Ellen Gainsford has more.
In a major reversal of position, the unpredictable U.S. President, Donald Trump, now says he believes that Ukraine can win back all of its territory from Russia due to the pressure the war is placing on Russia's economy. Posting online, he took a tougher tone against Moscow than previously.
Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger.
Trump had, in the past, warned that Ukraine would likely need to make territorial concessions to Russia to bring about an end to the conflict. The about-face came following Trump's meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York. Compared to their fiery confrontation at the White House 7 months ago, it was a radically different atmosphere. Following their discussions, President Zelensky celebrated the change of tone.
It's a big shift. This post of Trump, it's a big shift. It's a big shift. It's very positive.
Thank you so much.
What about economic penalties?
Zelensky also told reporters that Trump had said he was open to providing security guarantees for Ukraine after the war is over, but that he had given no specific details on what this would entail.
We're going to talk more about this renewed focus on Ukraine with author and expert Bart Szewczyk, who joins me now live from Brussels. Bart, thanks for taking the time to speak to us. What are your thoughts on this turnaround from Donald Trump? Has he now completely turned his back on the Russian president?
Well, as your coverage noted, it is a big diplomatic shift, and time will tell whether it translates into additional economic pressure against Russia and greater military support to Ukraine. But look, certainly today, Ukraine and Europe are in a much better posture with respect to the United States and with respect to transatlantic unity vis-a-vis Russia than even a week before.
So in his social media post, the U.S. president said Ukraine could win back all of its territory from Russia and, to quote him, maybe go even further. Can we read anything into that?
I'm not sure. I think the main point to take away is that right now there's a bit of momentum towards further support for Ukraine and greater pressure against Russia. And, you know, this conflict has been ongoing for 3.5 years. It's gone through ups and downs, successes by Ukraine and setbacks by Ukraine. And now I think it's an opportunity to build on this renewed diplomatic push by the United States and by Europe to exert greater pressure against Russia to try to see if we could bring Russia to the negotiating table and to have a resolution to this conflict. But, you know, certainly, this is an opportunity to build on. And one thing that I think Europeans have been looking at in recent days and weeks is, for instance, how to use Russian state assets that have been immobilized over the past 3.5 years and to be able to allocate those assets or the proceeds of those assets to Ukraine. This would free up something like 200 billion euro of cash to be available for additional weapons purchases, to be able to compensate Ukrainian claimants for the damage that they've suffered in Ukraine. And this might be a good opportune moment to try to focus on this effort.
Right. But what would need to happen concretely to release some of those assets?
Well, President von der Leyen, in her State of the European Union address a couple of weeks ago, outlined the general concepts of a plan, which would be to move those assets into another entity that would then invest in an IOU, into a loan agreement that would be repaid when Russia repays reparations for the damages caused in Ukraine. In a nutshell, to make a somewhat complicated financial arrangement sort of simple, this would free up about 200 billion euro in cash made available again for Ukraine for weapons purchases to compensate Ukrainian claimants. And that money would eventually go back to Russia once Russia paid for the damages caused in Ukraine.
I want to get back to this shift in position from Donald Trump. I mean, I know it's hard for anyone to really think what he might be thinking at the moment, but this does come after months of Donald Trump actually saying Ukraine would likely have to give up land to Russia, months after that very tense meeting we saw between Trump and Zelensky at the White House. What changed? Was it just the fact that Trump was not getting his way with Vladimir Putin?
Like you, I can't really speak exactly to the reason for the shift in strategy, but one factor might be just to try some new element. You know, we've been in this conflict for, like I said, over 3.5 years. The West has, throughout this time, provided extensive military and economic support to Ukraine. The Trump administration, when it came in, thought it could try a new approach to try to see if a diplomatic outreach to Russia might bring it to the negotiating table, and maybe that could be a way of resolving or ending the conflict. That hasn't worked, and so now they're trying something new, I think. And the new element is much greater rhetorical pressure on Russia that hopefully will also translate into, like I said, economic pressure against Russia and military support for Ukraine. And the elements are there. And I think, it's also, we should know that lots of credit should go to European leaders that have worked extensively over the past 9 months to try to engage the Trump administration and sort of give their perspective. First and foremost, President Zelensky, but also President Macron, Prime Minister Starmer, Prime Minister Tusk, and others. And it might be the case that the Trump administration and President Trump right now are in a new posture where they're thinking, okay, the diplomatic outreach to Russia hasn't worked. Let's try something new. And the Trump team has been, quite flexible in its foreign policy generally and taken a sort of a fluid approach. And this might be a new element as part of that overall strategy.
Just before you go, Bart, Volodymyr Zelensky is due to address the UN himself just a few hours from now. What do you think we can expect from that speech?
Well, from his press conference and meeting with President Trump yesterday, he seemed very pleased with the diplomatic and rhetorical posture that he and Ukraine find themselves in. So I think he will try to embrace this moment and build on this diplomatic momentum. I'm sure there will be lots of words of thanks, both to the United States, Europe, and the West writ large, and hopefully an outline of where things can go from here. And the truth is that ultimately, this war could end today, tomorrow, whenever Russia decides to stop fighting. If Ukraine stops fighting, it will be the end of Ukraine and the end of the Western order as we know it.
Bart, thank you for that. Bart Szewczyk speaking to me there live from
Thank you.
Brussels.